a desperate cultivator brings the conflict of powerful sects straight to the Li family's doorstep. But while Li Xianxia faces a dangerous choice, an even darker tragedy is unfolding in Lixia County, one that will change Li Xuanfeng forever. Welcome to episode 22. Ling Yanzi was so furious that he cursed 3 times in a row, yet he had no choice but to keep flying west. He was already nearing the lake, but there was still no sign of the Li family of Li Jing. Master, protect me. Please don't let the inheritance of Ziki Peak be cut off in my hands. If not for this Xian spirit barrier, how could I have lasted this long against those 2 dogs from Changxiao Gate? But my pills and talismans are almost gone. If I can't escape soon, I may truly die here today. Ling Yanzi swallowed his final pill, and once again drove his true essence to its limits. Mortal territories began to appear below, and at last 2 mountain peaks came into view. The sight of a brilliant formation filled him with excitement. He hurriedly accelerated and sent his voice booming forward with spiral power. I am Ling Yanzi, a disciple of Xian Gate, ally of the Qingchi Sect. I am being pursued by enemies today. Senior of the Li family ahead, I beg you to lend me your aid. His magically amplified voice rolled like thunder. The townspeople below looked up in alarm and began whispering among themselves. At the cave dwelling beneath the formation, Li Xuanfeng hurriedly knocked open Li Tongya's door. Li Tongya had barely frowned before Ling Yanzi's voice thundered across the sky again. I am a disciple of Xian Gate, allied with the Qingchi Sect. Senior of the Li family ahead, please save me. Li Tongya's expression immediately darkened. The struggle between the 3 sects and 7 gates. Why did it have to land on my doorstep? Xian Gate may be allied with the Qingchi Sect, but Qingchi is hardly a friend to my family. They've harmed us more than once. If I help him, I may earn the hatred of whoever is chasing him. If I refuse, I could offend both Qingchi and Xian at once. What a damned mess. Li Tongya left his cave dwelling and approached the edge of the formation. High above, Ling Yanzi was being battered relentlessly by 2 pursuers and clearly could not hold out for much longer. Everyone says the Li clan is a family of sword immortals, mighty beyond measure, Ling Yanzi shouted desperately. Will you truly refuse to save me? Once this is over, I, Ling Yanzi, will certainly offer treasures and cultivation arts in repayment. Li Tongya's face grew even uglier. A reputation can protect you, and it can also drag trouble straight to your door. He must have begged one family after another for help along the way, and each of them passed the problem onward until it landed in my hands. Looking at his condition, I'd better not let this ball explode while I'm holding it. Extending his spiritual sense beyond the formation, Li Tongya quickly assessed the 3 men. Ling Yanzi was at the 6th layer of Qi refining. Of the 2 sword-wielding cultivators pursuing him, one was at the 7th layer and the other at the 6th. Their true essence surged fiercely. Neither looked easy to deal with. I am Yu Yunzi of Changxiao Gate, one of them called. Do not meddle in another man's affairs. Heh! If you offend Changxiao Gate, the Qingchi Sect cannot protect you every hour of every day. Who knows when someone might wipe out your entire clan and walk away. Qingchi has always been cold and faithless. Do you truly think they would stand up for one insignificant little family? Ling Yanzi froze for a moment, then shouted hurriedly. Don't listen to their poison. If I fall here, Xian Gate will never let the matter rest. Once they investigate this place, you will be dragged into it as well. Li Tongya's head ached from listening to them, but a plan had already formed. If I attack openly and drive those 2 away, I'll save Ling Yanzi but invite retaliation later. If I refuse to help, Xian Gate may still come knocking and implicate us. The safest solution is to kill those 2 quietly. He flew out of the formation and spoke in a mild voice. Li Tongya of the Li Jing Li clan greets you both. Ling Yanzi's face had just begun to brighten when he realized Li Tongya was only at the 6th layer of Qi refining. Why did they send you? Where are your elders? Li Tongya cupped his hands apologetically. Our clan's foundation establishment ancestor is not within the formation at present. I'm afraid you have come here for nothing. The 2 men from Changxiao Gate burst into laughter and exchanged a glance. If the Li clan's old ancestor isn't here, then after killing Ling Yanzi, we may as well loot the place while we're at it. Ling Yanzi's face turned deathly pale. He raised the spirit pearl in his hand and shouted. Is the Li family truly this heartless? Despair swallowed him. He was about to risk everything in one final struggle when Li Tongya's voice suddenly buzzed into his ear through a private transmission. Senior, head toward the lake first. Follow the mountains into a remote part of the Great Lake. Deep inside, you will find a large white mountain with an enormous banyan tree at its summit. We will be waiting there with men in ambush to kill these 2. That way, my Li clan need not openly become enemies with Changxiao Gate, while Senior may escape safely. It benefits us both. Joy surged through Ling Yanzi's heart, yet his face did not change. He only shook his head bitterly, stepped onto his flying shuttle, and fled toward the lake. The 2 Changxiao cultivators laughed, nodded slightly to Li Tongya, and chased after him on their own shuttles. Tongya watched until they disappeared. Then he called a bewildered Li Xuanfeng out of his cave dwelling, changed his robe, and explained the plan while the two rode the wind into the mountains. After flying for some time, they landed beneath the great banyan tree. The fox there had been sleeping like a fool. It cracked open one eye and cried, "Oh, someone is coming!" Li Tongya cupped his hands and explained his intentions. Then he sent Li Xuanfeng to hide on the opposite summit. Li Tongya covered his face with a piece of spirit cloth and stood silently beneath the tree, waiting for the three men to arrive. Ling Yanzi circled once above Moonwatch Lake, using the Xian spirit barrier to withstand the attacks behind him. Then he suddenly changed direction and doubled back. "If that man lied to me just to lure these two away, I will die here today." He glanced at the two Changxiao cultivators behind him, fear tightening in his chest. "There is no other choice. I can only trust him once. Either way, death is behind me. If I die, the junior brothers and sisters of Ziki Peak will have a hard road ahead." Before long, the great white banyan tree appeared below. Ling Yanzi's eyes lit up, and he descended at once. The two men pursuing him suspected nothing and landed on the mountain as well. "The scenery here is beautiful," one of them sneered. "Not a bad place to be buried." Then they noticed a lone figure beneath the tree. "Who are you?" "Changxiao Gate is handling business here. Please step aside." Li Tongya looked at Ling Yanzi. The man's face was pale and he seemed barely able to remain standing. Li Tongya raised a hand and tossed him a bottle of qi recovery pills. "Fellow Taoist, rest for a moment. Leave these two to me." "How arrogant!" Startled and enraged, the two Changxiao cultivators drew their artifact swords and charged. Li Tongya drew his own blade. His pure white moon astral sword flashed. Clang! Clang! With two crisp collisions, he knocked both enemy swords back several meters. Not bad swordsmanship. The two Changxiao disciples were still wondering which sect among the 3 sects and 7 gates he belonged to when Li Tongya seized the advantage. His moon astral sword art unfolded, casting out more than 10 ordinary-looking sword lights, while his abundant true essence bore down on them with crushing force. The two men grew wary, and for the moment were genuinely suppressed. They had chased Ling Yanzi for a long distance, and did not have much true essence left. Yunzi grew anxious and sent a private transmission to Yuhezi. "Junior brother, this man hides his face and refuses to reveal his background. His swordsmanship is strong, and who knows what other trump cards he has. We might be better off leaving. It's only that the Xian spirit barrier is such a pity. We were so close to taking it." Yuhezi's cultivation was lower than his senior brothers, but he was the more decisive of the two. Who else could he be? Most likely he's from the Li Jingli clan. Everyone says that family is famous for swordsmanship. Doesn't this fit perfectly? Small clans like this usually possess only 1 or 2 worthwhile inheritances. His sword art may be formidable, but in other areas he surely cannot compare with us. We force him back, but we do not push him into a corner. If we drive him to desperation, then it becomes a fight to the death. Having made their decision, the two began to fight Li Tongya in earnest. Barely a dozen exchanges had passed when Yunzi's entire body suddenly tensed. His face went taut as if cut by a blade. An ambush. A stack of talismans in his hand ignited without wind. Several layers of protective radiance had only just covered his body when a shrieking sound tore through the air. His shield exploded. The force struck him like a heavy hammer and sent him flying far into the distance. Yuhezi saw his senior brother covered in dust and felt a chill of fear. "Senior brother!" Li Tongya's sword light pressed in at once, knocking Yuhezi's artifact sword away. At the same time, Li Xuanfeng's arrows came one after another. Though the later shots lacked the terrifying power of the first fully charged arrow, they still forced the pair into a miserable state, and planted the thought of retreat in their minds. Ling Yanzi stared in astonishment. He had never expected Li Tongya to truly hold off 2 opponents at once. In fact, the battle was already beginning to tilt toward a counterkill. "Brother, do not take their lives," Ling Yanzi hurriedly called. "Changxiao Gate disciples carry tracing seals. Whoever kills them may be marked by a hidden imprint." "Let me finish them!" The two Changxiao cultivators became even more frightened. They hurriedly brought out shields, talismans, and every hidden technique they had left. A white glowing jade pearl appeared in Yunzi's hand, while a gentle crimson flame burned around the other cultivator. For a moment they managed to hold Li Tongya and Li Xuanfeng at bay. Hearing Ling Yanzi's warning, Li Tongya's impression of him improved considerably. So Changxiao Gate possesses methods like that. Xian Gate probably has similar tricks. This has certainly opened my eyes. Such methods look useful, but they also tie your hands in battle. Against a truly powerful enemy, avoiding the final blow may be far harder than simply killing them. Ling Yanzi stepped forward as well. Violet light shimmered across his spirit barrier, dissolving every attack that struck it. The two brothers from Changxiao Gate immediately sensed something was wrong. They exchanged one look and leapt onto their flying shuttles. "Where do you think you're going?" Ling Yanzi ground his teeth. His hatred for them was obvious. With a cold laugh, he moved the spirit pearl in his hand. The Xian spirit barrier rippled violently and suddenly expanded, becoming like a great formation that trapped all 4 men within it and cut off the 2 cultivators' path of escape. Li Tongya found himself inside another man's formation and quietly raised his guard even as he praised it aloud. What a treasure, worthy of a Foundation establishment-grade artifact. The 2 Changxiao cultivators panicked and cursed. Li Tongya was already charging with his sword. Li Xuanfeng's arrows could no longer help from outside the barrier, but Ling Yanzi harassed the pair from the side. Their spiritual power was nearly exhausted, and their faces grew increasingly grim. Fellow Taoist, whatever Ling Yanzi promised you, the 2 of us can promise as well. If you kill us, Changxiao Gate will investigate. Why not stop here? We can pretend none of us ever met. Li Tongya answered with his sword. The blade plunged through Yu Yanzi's chest and abdomen. The man's spiritual power had been exhausted. He could barely remain in the air, much less dodge. Ah! The artifact sword emerged without holding a drop of blood, but the cut split open his torso and exposed his intestines. A chi-refining cultivator was still far from an immortal. Pain remained pain. Yu Yanzi's beard trembled violently. His face went white and sweat poured down his skin. Ling Yanzi blocked Yu Yanzi's sword, then reversed his blade and severed Yu Yanzi's head. Body and head fell together. Ling Yanzi exhaled, looking almost refreshed as though he had just downed 5 bowls of fiery soup in one breath. Sweat stood across his face. Ignoring Yu Yanzi's pleas, he hacked the man into several pieces. That felt good. Li Tongya gripped his sword and looked at him. His blade remained ready to strike. Fellow Taoist, open the formation. His thoughts, however, were colder. This Xian spirit barrier is extraordinary enough to stir anyone's greed. Ling Yanzi is already at the end of his strength. Perhaps. Ling Yanzi gave an awkward laugh and immediately dissolved the formation. When he saw Li Tongya picking up the 2 storage pouches, he hurriedly cried, "Absolutely not!" Li Tongya raised a suspicious eyebrow. Ling Yanzi lowered his voice. Disciples of the 3 sects and 7 gates often refine identity tokens linked to formations that record traces on their storage pouches. If someone other than the owner opens the pouch, the token will flee at once. Within a short time, all of Changxiao Gate will know exactly who killed their disciples. Li Tongya's heart tightened. He remembered that Li Chejing had once shown a similar token after returning home. Ling Yanzi was probably telling the truth. The 3 sects and 7 gates have passed down their inheritances for centuries upon centuries. Of course they have methods like this. No wonder everyone fears their disciples. I was even tempted by the Xian spirit barrier just now. Since I have already offended Changxiao Gate, I may as well build some goodwill with Ling Yanzi. He cupped his hands. Thank you for the warning. Not at all. I am the one who should thank you. Along the way I encountered 10 wandering cultivators and 6 different clans. Only the Li family reached out to help me. I am deeply grateful. Ling Yanzi's voice had grown sincere. Li Tongya smiled faintly, though inwardly he sighed. They all kicked the problem into my hands, that's all. Now I've helped kill these 2 and can't even open their storage pouches. I had better receive proper compensation, or this will have been a great deal of trouble for nothing. By then, Li Xuanfeng had already ridden the wind back to them. Li Tongya cupped his hands and smiled. Senior, why not visit the Li clan and sit with us for a while? Ling Yanzi's first instinct was to refuse, but then he reconsidered. If he wanted to kill me, 1 sword would be enough. There would be no need to lure me into his formation. It seems he truly wishes to make an acquaintance. I may as well go. Li Tongya of the Lijing Li clan, Ling Yanzi of Ziki Peak, Xian Gate. At last Ling Yanzi arrived on Mount Lijing. The moment he entered the courtyard, Li Xuanfeng came forward with a bright smile. Greetings, Senior. Ling Yanzi nodded with reserve. Then Li Xuanfeng smiled and said quietly, I have already called all our clansmen together. We are respectfully waiting to receive Senior's wondrous arts. Ling Yanzi nearly stopped breathing. Only then did he remember that while fleeing for his life, he had blurted out promises of cultivation methods and spiritual treasures. Li Tongya and Li Xuanfeng were amused, secretly admiring Xuanling's timing. Li Xuanfeng, however, kept a perfectly serious face. Linger, don't be rude. Senior Ling Yanzi is an accomplished cultivator of the 3 sects and 7 gates. Surely you are not worried that he would break his word. Ling Yanzi lowered his head and sighed. Sitting down, he gave a bitter smile. Don't call me some accomplished cultivator of the 3 sects and 7 gates. I was chased like a dog. Forget all of you. The tens of thousands of mortals below the mountain probably saw my miserable state clearly enough. What dignity of a great cultivator do I have left? I am only another ordinary man afraid of death. He took a sip of tea, savoring it carefully. His expression slowly settled. No matter what, I survived. Those 2 from Changxiao Gate died by my hand. You don't understand. Being alive is, he paused, his breathing catching for a moment. Then he laughed. Better than anything. Those words made Li Tongya regard him with slightly greater respect. The younger Li disciples also fell quiet. Ling Yanzi continued, "All my true cultivation comes from my sect. I swore a profound center spirit oath and cannot pass those methods to you. My spirit stones and medicinal pills were exhausted during the escape. Most of the secret manuals I collected while traveling would be of little use to your family." He paused. "There is, however, one secret art, the Purple Thunder Secret Origin Art. Among third-grade cultivation methods, it is an exceptional one. It should be worth something. Brother Tongya, what do you think? Please explain it, Senior." Li Tongya finally saw that the man was willing to pay his debt and listened carefully. This art was originally a fourth-grade cultivation method of the ancient Leyan Temple. In those days, cultivators swallowed purple gold thunder essence to attain key refining. Upon reaching foundation establishment, the immortal foundation they formed was called Eastern Thunder Clarity. Later, Leyan Temple was destroyed and purple gold thunder essence disappeared. The method was altered to use profound yin thunder essence instead, reducing it to third grade. The resulting immortal foundation is called the Profound Thunder Pool. Even so, it remains considerably better than an ordinary third-grade method. Oh? Li Tongya frowned again. If it is a secret method, there must be some price to pay. Only a minor one. You become unable to sire children, and your lifespan is shortened by a few years. The faint interest on Li Tongya's face vanished instantly. A sect might tolerate such a drawback. But as a family cultivation method, infertility would be digging out the Li clan's roots with their own hands. Seeing his expression, Ling Yanzi grew embarrassed. "That is not all. I also possess the method for harvesting profound yin thunder essence. I will give you that as well." Li Tongya looked at him, shook his head helplessly, and said, "Then I thank you, Senior." "And these pouches?" Ling Yi lifted the two white storage pouches that had belonged to the Changxiao disciples. "Their pouches can resonate with Changxiao Gate's tracking methods, so they must not be opened. Keeping them in your clan would only invite disaster. Give them to me. Next year, I will send someone to exchange the contents for spirit stones and deliver the proceeds to your clan." Naturally, Li Tongya did not completely trust him. But there was no better solution. He would treat it as selling Ling Yanzi a favor. "Take them, Senior." Ling Yanzi accepted the storage pouches. The two artifact swords and flying shuttles of the dead Changxiao cultivators naturally fell into the Li clan's hands. The swords were even better than Li Tongya's own, but no one dared use them openly. The two shuttles were comparatively ordinary. The Li family had many other uses for its spirit stones and had never purchased such things. Now, two had fallen into their laps, yet they still did not dare bring them out casually. Li Tongya decided he would find a suitable day to sell them quietly. Ling Yanzi chatted for a little while longer, rested on Mount Lijing, then bade the clan farewell and piloted a shuttle back to report to his sect. At last, peace returned to Mount Lijing. Li Xuanfeng and Li Tongya entered seclusion, while everyone else returned to their own affairs. Lixia Commandery. The main street was packed with people. Vendors pushed small carts along both sides of the road, selling cakes and rice porridge. Yet deeper in, the narrow lanes held fewer people and felt strangely quiet. A small bluestone courtyard hidden inside one of those alleys was quieter still. Several green vines climbed the walls, and 2 rows of laundry hung from wooden poles, swaying gently in the evening light. "Mother!" A clear young boy's voice rang out. Zhang Yunu slowly lifted her head. Her once round and lovely face had grown noticeably thinner. "You're..." The boy wore plain clothing without any ornamentation, but the fabric was clean and had obviously been washed with care. He had a small round face and smiling eyes fixed on Zhang Yunu. "Mother, there's a beggar out front asking us for copper coins." Zhang Yunu frowned at him, then laughed softly, and took 2 small pieces of money from her clothes, placing them in his hand. "Go on. Be careful." Watching the little boy toddle outside, Zhang Yunu suddenly felt uneasy. She quickly rose and followed after him, gritting her teeth as she muttered, "It's been 5 full years. Did that bastard die fighting someone? Not a single word all this time. If I hadn't had Yuan Yu, these 5 years would have driven me mad." When Zhang Yunu reached the front of the courtyard, she saw that the beggar was a middle-aged man with all 4 limbs intact and some color still in his face. Yet he had shamelessly collapsed on the ground, groaning in pain, while little Yuan Yu stood beside him trying to comfort him. "You were afraid the man might be a swindler," Zhang Yunu hurriedly called. "Come back here." Li Yuanyu tilted his head toward her, smiled, and trotted over. "Mother, that man is really strange. He didn't want my money. He even thanked me for helping him move and gave me a coin instead. It's really big and round." He produced a flat, dark gray coin. 4 ancient carats were carved into it, though neither of them knew what they meant. Zhang Yunu paid little attention to the coin. Her eyes remained fixed on the beggar. "There are wicked people in the commandery who make a living selling children. You must learn to recognize danger." After warning him, Zhang Yunu picked the child up and carried him back into the courtyard. I'll take you to the teacher again this afternoon to study your letters, all right? Li Yuanyu answered with childish innocence. Mother and son walked inside. Then the bright sun in the sky suddenly dimmed. Dense black clouds swept in rapidly from the east. Faintly, several tiny figures could be seen standing high above Lixia Commandery. From time to time, laughter drifted down from the heavens. They looked at the mortals below the way diners might look at roasted meat laid out on a table. Situyu stood steadily atop a large flying shuttle. His heart was bitter. The crowded people below Lixia Commandery were all raising their heads to stare at the cultivators in the sky, yet the sight only made him more agitated. The situation reminded him of the last time Tangjin Gate had entered Qingchi territory, slaughtering mortals to refine an artifact. But this time was different. Decades ago, one of Situyu's clansmen had entered Qingchi lands arrogantly, swaggering as if he owned the place, only to be killed in retaliation by the Qingchi Sect. Situyu knew that today was no ordinary transaction. This was a request from Qingchi itself. The mission was so dangerous that his sect had deliberately sent someone as unimportant as him, a mere embryonic breath cultivator, to lead it. Tangjin Gate called itself a sect, but in truth it was little more than the Situ clan under another name. The higher a cultivator's realm, the greater the chance that their descendants would be born with spiritual apertures. Over time, sects inevitably fell under the control of a single bloodline. The Qingchi Sect had the Qi clan. The Jinyu Sect had the Zhang clan. Cultivators of other surnames might enter those sects, but in the end they were still serving someone else's family. Tangjin Gate's mid-stage Purple Mansion cultivator had died, robbing the sect of its pillar. The branch of Liujin Gate tied to Qingchi through marriage naturally gained the upper hand. That elder clansman of Situyu's who had massacred the Wan family had also met a miserable end. The more Situyu thought about it, the more frightened he became. He understood enough about these massacres across territorial borders to know that anyone involved rarely met a good end. Now Tangjin Gate had become a subordinate of the Qingchi Sect. The Situ clan received orders to march south and attack the 5 commanderies under Qingchi. Situyu had no idea what madness had seized Qingchi, making it suddenly slaughter families beneath its own rule. But he could only bow his head, accept the order, and bring his men south. This is absurd beyond belief. I'm only at embryonic breath, yet they want me to lead several Qi refining cultivators to raid Lixia Commandery, a territory guarded by a Foundation establishment clan. His thoughts churned. Then inspiration suddenly flashed through his mind. I understand now. Qingchi must have a Purple Mansion cultivator nearing the end of his life. They're afraid. Brother Yu, a Qi refining cultivator beside him, called out. Situyu snapped back to his senses and summoned a blood-red saber. It was a Foundation establishment-grade artifact. More than 100,000 lives had already been sacrificed to it. If this final refinement succeeded, it might even rival some of the Qingchi Sect's foremost artifacts. Situyu recited an incantation. A vast tide of crimson blade light burst from the weapon. More than 1,000 streams of blood-red radiance moved through the air, as though each possessed a will of its own, then plunged toward Lixia Commandery to hunt mortals on their own. Clan Uncle! Xiao Ruyu clasped his hands toward Xiao Yongling, his face taut with urgency. Please act now. There are hundreds of thousands of mortals in Lixia, along with several thousand mortal descendants of our Xiao clan. The enemy has only a dozen or so Qi refining cultivators. How can we simply watch them slaughter everyone? Wait. Xiao Yongling shook his head. He looked coldly at the dozen Qi refining figures hovering above the commandery. It cannot be that simple. Qingchi's people are almost certainly watching from outside. They want to force the Foundation establishment cultivators of our Xiao clan to act, then surround and kill us. He lowered his voice. Qi Wei has only a few years left to live. We cannot ruin the ancestors' great plan now. Xiao Ruyu's face stiffened. But those are hundreds of thousands of mortals. They have supported the Xiao family generation after generation. How can we abandon them and let Tangjin Gate use them to refine an artifact? Do you think I don't know that? Xiao Yongling finally lost his patience and roared at the younger man. Our Xiao clan has endured for 300 years. We finally produced a heaven-defying genius like Ancestor Chuding, broke the alliance of the 3 families, and gained control of all Lixia Commandery. Only a dozen more years remain before we can break free of the Qingchi Sect and become an independent Purple Mansion immortal clan. How can we act rashly now? Are you not afraid that Qi Wei is waiting outside our mountain gate? The moment we make a move, he will force us into battle and ambush the Purple Mansion cultivator our family struggled so hard to produce. Then we will lose the mortals and the Xiao clan together. Xiao Ru fell silent. Xiao Yongling looked down at him and spoke harshly. As long as Qi Wei dies, Qingchi will no longer have the strength to kill our ancestor. Then all of this will have been worth it. We will carve out our own territory and stand alone. Give us a few more decades to take Moonwatch Lake Commandery and Junlin as well. With Moonwatch Lake and Dali Mountain at our backs, the Xiao clan will have nothing left to fear. Xiao Ruyu said nothing. Together, the two men looked down upon mountains of corpses and rivers of blood. Below them was a mortal hell. The formation blocked out the wailing and screaming, but Xiao Ruyu's teeth ground together until they creaked. At last, he spoke in grief. I always hated Tangjin Gate and Qingchi for being so despicable. But looking at our own Xiao clan today, we are not much cleaner. Xiao Yongling trembled slightly. His expression grew complicated. If you want to find something clean, look in a storybook. Perhaps you may find one or two things there. His voice was quiet. Anything touched by sunlight was never truly clean to begin with. Li Xuanfeng stepped out of seclusion. The Gengjin longbow in his hand gleamed beneath the sunlight. Seeing Li Xuanxuan coming to greet him, Li Xuanfeng laughed. I've been in seclusion for 5 years, yet eldest brother hasn't slowed down either. You're already close to the peak of embryonic breath. Ha! I still can't compare to you. Li Xuanxuan had advanced rapidly over the past 5 years. Not only had he formed the last of the 6 embryonic breath chakras, but he had cultivated all the way to the peak of the realm. Naturally, he was delighted.
How's your archery?
Li Xuanxuan asked. Li Xuanfeng grinned and handed him a jade slip. This bow art is called the Demon Rope Bow Art. It is profound and mysterious. Anyone who masters it completely should inherit 70% of my true teachings. Good, good. Li Xuanxuan accepted the jade slip, examined it, and carefully tucked it into his clothes, intending to store it in the stone chamber later. Go handle your own business. I'll inform uncle. Li Xuanfeng nodded lightly. A faint mustache now made him look far more mature than before. He had just lifted a bowl of tea when unease suddenly stirred in his heart. Strange. Li Xuanfeng put the tea down. For no apparent reason, Zhang Yunu's figure appeared in his mind. No matter what, I should bring that little woman home this time. Key refining cultivators do not have children easily. If I wait for her to conceive again, who knows how long it will take. Leaving her outside all these years is not right either. As for what uncle and brother will say, I'll explain afterward. Fenger! Li Tongya rode the wind down into the courtyard. He walked in with an easy expression. Li Xuanfeng's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly rose to cup his hands. Congratulations, second uncle! You've broken through to the 7th layer of Qi refining! Li Tongya's aura had indeed reached the 7th layer, and his true essence was full and stable. Clearly, the breakthrough had occurred a year or two earlier. He nodded and sat down, accepting a cup of tea. How much progress have you made with your bow art? Of course I've progressed. Li Xuanfeng proudly lifted the longbow. A few years ago, I was only picking up a bow and shooting arrows. Now I have grasped bow intent. I no longer need an arrow. When I draw and raise the bow, if I aim at a rabbit, the rabbit fears death. If I aim at a man, his courage shatters. Mortal men and embryonic breath cultivators need not even be mentioned. If a Qi refining cultivator is struck by this invisible, formless arrow intent of mine, his heart will still fill with fear and his mind may go blank for a long time. Those with weak wills may vomit blood as their hearts burn, unable even to remain in flight. So miraculous? Li Tongya found the art extremely strange. He had little understanding of archery and could not tell whether Li Xuanfeng's present realm was truly extraordinary or merely unusual. They would have to test it in real battle someday. Noticing that Li Xuanfeng kept glancing around, Li Tongya chuckled. What is it? Li Xuanfeng shook his head and took a moment to arrange his words. This? He hesitated. Second uncle, please forgive me. I have a woman in the commandery. Her background is too humble, so I never dared bring her home. We have been together for more than 10 years. Today I want to bring her back, and perhaps give the family more descendants. Li Tongya sighed and took a sip of tea. Young men fool around. There is no great crime in that. Find an opportunity and bring her home. Li Xuanfeng was overjoyed and nodded repeatedly. He had originally intended to demonstrate his bow art for Li Tongya and the others, but he was too excited now. After bidding Li Tongya farewell, he rode the wind toward the commandery to fetch Zhang Yunu. Li Wanyu was sleeping hazily near the foot of the bed when shouts suddenly reached his ears. Some people were screaming. Some were crying. He woke with a start. Mist filled the space around and beneath the bed, blurring everything. Mother! Li Wanyu turned his head. Zhang Yunu was nowhere to be seen. Looking around, he discovered that the sky outside had become terrifyingly dark. He crawled toward the window. A bright moon appeared before him. How strange. He took a few steps forward and walked out of the room. His foot met empty air. There was no solid ground beneath him. He slowly fell. Ah! Something tightened around his neck. Li Wanyu flailed his arms and legs, then raised his head. The towering wall of the commandery stood before him. He himself was standing upright inside a large basket. Somehow, he had already been carried outside the city. The same middle-aged man he had met earlier stood nearby, smiling at him. The man's face was deathly pale. His lips were red as blood, and his eyes were so black they were frightening. Looks like this old man's spellcraft hasn't gotten rusty after all. I couldn't steal everything, but I managed to keep the child. You? The middle-aged man pulled the strange coin from Li Xuanyu's clothes and carefully tucked it back into his own robes. Then his expression turned solemn. You accepted my life-buying coin. Now come with me. Li Xuanyu stared at him in shock. Why did you bring me out here? Are you an immortal? No. The middle-aged man's expression darkened with disgust. Those so-called immortals are nothing but butchers. Killing people like cutting grass, yet still calling themselves immortals. Immortals! Li Xuanyu felt as though lightning had struck him. His eyes went wide. What are you talking about? The middle-aged man gave a low laugh. He took one step forward and brushed a hand across the city wall. Patterns rippled apart like water. The scene inside the city was revealed. Li Xuanyu looked only once. Blood, bodies torn apart. A scene so horrific that he choked and nearly fainted. Ah! His little face instantly went white, and he burst into tears. The middle-aged man paid no attention. My name is Jiang Baoqing. From now on, you will follow me and cultivate curse arts. What is your name? Li Xuanyu naturally did not believe him and had no desire to go anywhere with him. He only cried harder. Jiang Baoqing looked pleased with himself, lifted the boy into his arms and laughed. Then, you can take my surname. From now on, you'll be called Jiang Yan. Li Xuanfeng rode the wind along the ancient Li Road. In the distance, 5-colored radiance flowed over Guanyun Peak. The formation there had clearly been activated. His heart sank. Someone actually dared provoke the Xiao clan? What happened? His unease exploded. Without slowing at all, Li Xuanfeng flew onward. Below, the city gates stood empty. Overturned carts lay everywhere. Clothing had been scattered across the roads, and food covered the ground while unrestrained horses and cattle wandered about eating whatever they found. Li Xuanfeng finally lost his composure. His face hardened as he crossed the walls of Lixia Commandery. Bloodied handprints covered the stone. Hundreds upon hundreds. Thousands. It looked as though people had stepped through blood and desperately tried to climb the wall, only to fall again and again. Blood and urine had splashed together beneath it. The courtyard in the alley was not difficult to find. In such a vast city, not a single living figure could be seen. Li Xuanfeng descended before the courtyard. A small crooked wild goose ornament hung beside the door. A little blood stained it, and it swayed in the wind as though it wanted to spread its wings and fly away. Creak? The small door stood partly open. Li Xuanfeng pushed gently. It swung inward. A small pale foot lay on the steps. It had been severed cleanly. The cut was smooth, quick, and decisive. One glance was enough. Li Yansheng recognized that foot. He had held it beneath the blankets more times than he could count. He had once rubbed those feet until Jiang Yunu stared at him in embarrassed annoyance. Back then, he had only just learned the pleasures between man and woman. Holding her foot in his hand, he had laughed and asked, "How can something this lovely exist?" Her round almond eyes had stared at him from that soft, pretty face, too embarrassed to meet his gaze. Now Li Xuanfeng felt as though someone had slapped him across the face. He tried to look away. Then he saw blood-soaked intestines against the wall. His legs gave out. He fell heavily to the ground. For a long moment there was no sound from him. Then he picked up the severed foot like a beaten stray and cried, "No!" Tears burst from his eyes. He staggered forward and found 2 pale arms. As he lifted them, the foot fell from his grasp. He hurriedly picked it up again and continued inside, a smooth curve of flesh, long black hair, piece after piece. At last, inside the room, he found half of her face. Jiang Yunu's once lovely almond eyes remained set within it. Those eyes had once been filled with endless hope whenever they looked at him. Now they were dull and empty, like the eyes of a dead fish. Everything in Li Xuanfeng's hands fell to the floor. He sank to one knee. The world swayed before him, his father Li, old Shusan. Countless faces drew near and drifted away again. In one corner, Li Xuanfeng found the lower half of her face. His hands trembled uncontrollably as he gathered the broken teeth and placed them back into her mouth. He closed her eyes. His face had gone gray-white. "Little woman." His voice was gentler than it had ever been. "Wake up." Blood seeped from his lips. He bent down and kissed her. "This is my fault. Your man is an idiot, but I still have my life. I'll make sure the one who did this is sent down to meet you. Little woman, whoever he is, some young lord of an immortal sect, some murderous demon cultivator, I'll make him die for you. Just wait." "You wait for me!" He staggered to his feet. The fire in his eyes was so fierce it almost hurt to look at, as though he had swallowed 2 vats of burning liquor, and the flames had spread from the crown of his head to the tips of his toes. He looked down at the woman on the floor. "It's not that I won't bury you. I'm afraid he'll escape. I'm going to ask who did this, then I'll come back for you." With that, he turned and walked out of the courtyard. He removed the crooked little goose hanging from the wall and held it carefully in his palm. Then he stepped onto the wind, flew over the mountains of corpses and seas of blood below, and headed for Guanyun Peak. Xiao Ruyu stood blankly atop the mountain. Grief and cold unease filled his heart. Then an icy voice sounded from outside the formation. Li Xuanfeng has come to pay a visit. Senior, please open the mountain gate. Xiao Yongling had not yet spoken when Xiao Ruyu nearly jumped in alarm. This is bad. There were members of the Li clan in the commandery. Seeing Xiao Yongling's grim silence, Xiao Ruyu's thoughts raced. Li Xuanfeng must be furious beyond reason. I absolutely cannot let him meet clan uncle. If he says something reckless, the two of them may turn against each other. He stepped forward. Clan uncle, leave this to me. Xiao Yongling stroked his chin and nodded lightly. Clearly, he had been thinking along the same lines. Xiao Ruyu rode the wind out of the formation. His face was full of sorrow. Brother Xuanfeng. Li Xuanfeng, by contrast, was eerily calm. There was no expression on his face. What happened below? Tangjin Gate crossed the border and massacred Lixia Commandery. My family did not dare resist. I understand. Li Xuanfeng raised his head. The sight stunned Xiao Ruyu. The carefree wildness that had once lived in those eyes was gone. In its place was something cold, vicious, and unfamiliar enough to inspire fear. If Chen Donghob had been there, he would have been stunned. He had seen that same expression appear on Li Xiangping's face 1,000 times. Now at last, it had appeared on Li Xuanfeng. Those dark gray, ruthless eyes seemed to have been transplanted directly from father to son. Which way did they go? East? Xiao Ruyu barely got the word out before Li Xuanfeng rose on the wind. Brother Xuanfeng, don't be reckless! Xiao Ruyu gritted his teeth. He hesitated only a moment before taking to the air and chasing east after him. Once he caught up, his emotions surged. Xiao Ruyu had always been kind-hearted. Watching hundreds of thousands of mortals slaughtered had left a fire trapped inside him with nowhere to go. Brother Xuanfeng, those people from Tangjin Gate are only at Qi refining. The young master in charge is merely an embryonic breath cultivator. They are bait thrown out by Tangjin Gate and the Qingchi Sect. There are probably more than 10 Foundation establishment cultivators shadowing them. Unless they hook a few major Foundation establishment targets, those people will not reveal themselves. You and I are only at Qi refining, but if we plan carefully, perhaps we can still make them pay a price. Though rage burned through Li Xuanfeng, he had never lost his reason. Brother Ruyu, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Forget that young master being only at embryonic breath. Even if he were at Qi refining, he would not escape today. I want him to die without understanding how. I want him to die miserably. For now, consider it interest. Xiao Ruyu glanced at the Gengjin longbow on his back. After a moment of thought, he slapped the pouch at his waist and took out 2 pale blue talismans. I have 2 profound origin escape talismans. They are my strongest life-saving trump cards. If Brother Xuanfeng can guarantee a killing blow, then the moment you strike, we flee west. We won't try to conceal our tracks. I'll trouble you, Brother Ruyu. Li Xuanfeng accepted one of the talismans, feeling slightly more assured. Xiao Ruyu's face hardened. If this succeeds, at least it may offer some comfort to the hundreds of thousands of wronged souls below. Perhaps then I will not lie awake every night blaming myself. If it fails, we run immediately. There is no need to throw our own lives away. Great vengeance need not be repaid in a single day. As long as we live, there will be another chance. Brother Ruyu, rest assured. Xuanfeng will not act rashly. Li Xuan shook his head. His hatred toward the Qingchi Sect and Tangjin Gate had risen to an entirely new level. This time, I am only venting my rage for my elders and for the woman and child in my household. But hatred does not vanish simply because one man dies. We still have a long future ahead of us. As he finished speaking, a group appeared on the horizon. Every one of them wore golden robes and carried bladed artifacts across their backs. One glance was enough to identify them as cultivators of Tangjin Gate. At the highest point floated a boy of 12 or 13. He was controlling a blood-red saber. Great torrents of crimson blade light poured from it, and more than 1,000 streaks of blood-red radiance moved freely through the air before descending one after another. The surrounding Qi refining cultivators formed a loose circle, staring eagerly at the small town below and the mountains of bodies piled there. Li Xuanfeng narrowed his eyes and watched for a moment. Then he landed on a distant mountaintop. He stepped forward into empty air. His left hand drew the bowstring. His right hand held the bow. He did not knock an arrow. Not a single trace of spiritual light appeared on the weapon. His movement was utterly ordinary, as though he were aiming at a wild rabbit. Twang. The bowstring struck the air, that was all. A gentle breeze moved through the mountains and shook loose 2 broken leaves. Li Xuanfeng lowered the bow. Half the heaviness in his expression seemed to disappear. He is dead. Let's go. Xiao Ruyu stared at him, completely unable to understand what had happened. Then both men activated their talismans and transformed into 2 blue streaks of light racing west with the wind. Warner, what is it? Nothing. Ningwan frowned slightly. She remained hidden high in the sky, looking down at the proud young master of Tangjin Gate. Her heart was uneasy. As a disciple of Moon Lake Peak, Lixia Commandery was territory she was supposed to protect. Yet now it had effectively been handed over to Tangjin Gate for slaughter. The situation filled her with shame and pity, but she had no choice except to obey the orders of her sect and remain ready to suppress any Foundation establishment cultivator who appeared. Ningguan was no rigid moralist, nor was she one of those naive sect disciples who knew nothing of the world. If she had to choose between the lives of Qingchi Sect disciples and hundreds of thousands of mortals, she would support the Qingchi Sect without hesitation. But allowing outsiders to massacre her own people, merely to lure out and destroy a single Foundation establishment cultivator, that price felt excessive even to her. Ningguan had broken through to Foundation establishment more than 10 years earlier. Aside from Li Chejing, she was the youngest Foundation establishment cultivator in the Qingchi Sect. Among the hidden cultivators surrounding the area, her mastery of intent was also the deepest. She saw the arrow intent flying straight towards Situyu's head with perfect clarity, yet she watched coldly and did not intervene. In fact, a faint trace of satisfaction flashed through her eyes. Intent this profound must come from someone who has spent years at Foundation establishment, perhaps even a Purple Mansion immortal cultivator, and there is not a trace of spiritual power mixed into it. This person clearly does not want to openly damage relations between the two sides. He only wants revenge on that young master. Then let him. If the boy dies, he dies. His death will not affect the plan. Ningguan had never liked Situyu anyway. The boy was barely 12 or 13, yet already vicious enough to slaughter the people under Moon Lake Peak's protection. The sect's orders prevented her from acting herself, but watching him die unexpectedly? That suited her perfectly well. She glanced around. Several mid- and late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators wore thoughtful expressions. They had clearly noticed the incoming intent as well. Yet not one of them intended to offend some unknown Foundation establishment, or perhaps even Purple Mansion expert for the sake of a single embryonic breath cultivator. Even the cultivators of Tangjin Gate remained coldly still. Ningguan almost laughed. Below, Situyu suddenly grunted in pain. The chi-refining cultivators around him quickly turned. Situyu waved them off and smacked his lips in confusion. How strange, why does my mouth taste so bitter? Unease grew in his heart. He shook his head. The bitterness only worsened. Someone take over the artifact for a moment. I have something to deal with. A cultivator immediately stepped forward and received the blood-red saber. The instant Situyu's hands left it, he suddenly froze. He touched his mouth. A pale yellow liquid coated his fingertips. This is bile? No! Situyu screamed. His chest began swelling as if air were being pumped into it. His entire body sagged to the ground. Ah! Ancestor, ancestor, save me, His body expanded like a balloon. The hidden Foundation establishment cultivators above sent down their spiritual senses, one after another. Not one of them appeared. Not one of them acted. They simply watched. Boom! Situyu exploded. Blood, flesh, and fragments of bone splattered across the nearby chi-refining cultivators. The group stood stunned in a cloud of blood, wiping gore from their faces without understanding what had happened. The man holding the artifact opened his mouth, as though about to call for help. Then a cold voice came from above. Continue. No one dared hesitate. They lowered their heads, used spells to clean the blood from their bodies, and calmly resumed controlling the artifact. From among Situyu's shattered bones, a hostile marking seal rose into the air. It searched for traces of spiritual power. It found nothing. The mark circled blankly once, then dissolved into empty space. A young master of a great clan, and he died in such a humiliating way. One of the chi-refining cultivators thought silently, fear filling his heart. I thought that even though he was only a secondary son, he was clever, calculating, and born with a spiritual aperture. Staying at his side should have given us a good future. I never imagined he would simply die out here. Our days are going to be hard now. Xiao Ruyu and Li Xuanfeng stopped in the mountains. Li Xuanfeng's voice was dull. He died. But killing him only vented some anger. It changed nothing. In the end, we are still too weak. Xiao Ruyu did not understand how Li Xuanfeng had killed the Tangjin young master, but grief weighed on him just as heavily. This matter is a tangled ledger no one can truly settle. If we count carefully, who among them is innocent? You and I only killed the person who seemed responsible on the surface. Those behind him simply picked up the artifact and continued the slaughter. They are not people you and I can oppose right now. Li Xuanfeng had no desire to say more. The journey there and back had taken only a few hours. He cupped his hands. I still need to collect the remains and arrange the burial. I won't keep talking with Brother Ruyu. Xiao Ruyu hurriedly returned the salute and watched Li Xuanfeng leave. Only after a long while did he turn around. Xiao Yongling stood behind him. Clan uncle? I suppose you've had your fill. The moment Li Xuanfeng disappeared, Xiao Yongling revealed himself. He stared at Xiao Ruming and spoke in a low voice. You escaped because you slipped through the gap in the two sects' calculations. Never do something so dangerous again. Clearly, he had secretly followed the two men the entire way. The Xiao clan's cultivation methods were gentle and excelled at concealment, so neither Li Xuanfeng nor Xiao Ruyu had detected him. Although Xiao Ruyu believed the cultivators of the two sects had no idea how the young master had died, he did not argue with his elder. Ruyu will remember. Only then did Xiao Yongling nod. He looked in the direction Li Xuanfeng had gone. Li Xuanfeng is not a fool, but courage fills him to the bone. He was born that way. That courage can help him. It can also kill him. Today ended well only because his bow art was unbelievably strange. But if there comes a day when he fails, that same courage will likely be the reason. Xiao Ruyu truly regarded Li Xuanfeng as a friend, and shook his head reluctantly. Xiao Yongling glared at him. Your kindness is the same kind of weakness. You may not be stupid, but cultivators like us live for centuries. If your nature remains this easy to read, sooner or later someone will use it against you. Xiao Ruming laughed and bowed respectfully. In this junior's opinion, there are 100 kinds of people because the world needs 100 kinds of people. If everyone lived only by weighing benefit against harm, forever bowing, flattering, and avoiding danger, that would be a rather shameful world. Brat! Xiao Yongling burst out laughing. He rubbed the young man's head and murmured gently, An elder only hopes that you can live well. I am not trying to force you to become someone else. Night had begun to fall when Li Xuanfeng returned to the courtyard. Everything remained silent, no voices. Only distant cries carried faintly from the far edge of the horizon. The gloomy sky had already swallowed the stains of blood, but Li Xuanfeng's qi-refining cultivation allowed him to see every detail clearly. Little woman, I killed their young master first. I've taken revenge for you. He tore down a door panel and fashioned it into a crude coffin. Then, with painstaking care, Li Xuanfeng gathered every piece of Zhang Yunu's body he could find. Using spiritual power, he joined the severed parts together one by one. It took more than half an hour before her remains could once again resemble a person lying there. As he arranged her body, Li Xuanfeng murmured continuously. He searched through the cupboards for clothes and gently covered her. Then his gaze suddenly fell upon several sets of children's clothing. He picked them up. Most were sized for a child of 4 or 5 years old. Opening the lower drawers, he found all manner of children's belongings. He counted the years. If Zhang Yunu had become pregnant the last time they were together, their child would indeed be about that age now. Through his tears, he noticed 2 characters stitched into a sleeve. Yuan Yu. Zhang Yunu had once been the daughter of a prosperous fishing household by the river. Though she later fell into a brothel, she had still learned a little writing. Whether the clumsy characters had been embroidered or written by her own hand, the 2 words Yuan Yu sprawled awkwardly across the cloth. Yuan Yu. Only now did Li Xuanfeng realize that he had a child in this city whom he had never met. The guilt and agony became almost unbearable. He lay on the ground for a while until he could breathe again, then closed the coffin. By the timing, there's no sign of the child here. Perhaps he was at school or playing in the streets. Li Xuanfeng tucked several sets of children's clothing into his robes. Carrying the coffin, he flew around the courtyard beneath the darkening sky. He saw no body belonging to a child of 4 or 5. Wiping away his tears, he headed toward the nearby school. There, the ground was littered with pieces of children's remains. Li Xuanfeng searched through the blood for a long time, but there was no way to identify anyone. In the end, he could only decide to build an empty grave and bury the clothes. With a mournful sigh, he shook the blood from his hands and went toward the Li clan's shop. Still carrying the coffin, he circled the premises once. Near the entrance, he managed to identify the remains of Wan Tianqiu and one of his own clansmen. He clenched his teeth. I told you again and again to cultivate properly. I told you not to be lazy and hide in the commandery enjoying an easy life, and now you couldn't even withstand a single flash from someone else's artifact. His mouth opened. Then he saw the despair frozen in Wan Tianqiu's eyes. The rest of his anger died in his throat. Li Xuanfeng's voice turned hoarse. It wasn't your fault. Blame this world. I'll have your family come and collect your remains. Li Xuanfeng lowered his head and sighed. Then he carried the coffin westward, flying over the blood-soaked city wall. Before long, he saw Xiao Ruyu waiting along the ancient Li Road. Seeing the coffin in Li Xuanfeng's arms, Xiao Ruyu looked guilty. Brother Xuanfeng, I received word. The young master really did die. I know. Li Xuanfeng answered dully, and continued riding the wind toward the Li clan. Xiao Ruyu remained standing there in the gradually brightening sky for a long while before finally descending from the mountain. Mount Lijing. Li Xuanxuan led Li Yuanshu up the mountain. The boy was now 12 years old, quiet and polite. Several years earlier, he had been found to possess a spiritual aperture and had begun cultivating ahead of the others. By now, he had already formed the first embryonic breath chakra, the profound sensory chakra. Li Xuanfeng intended to let him assist with some clan affairs, so the boy could begin learning responsibility early. Li Yuanjiao was already 8 years old. He too possessed a spiritual aperture, news that had delighted Li Xuanfeng beyond measure the previous year. Li Shunling's household had done well too. Lu Wanrong had borne him 2 children, a daughter and a son. The daughter was named Li Qinghong. The boy was named Li Wenyun. He was 4 years older than his younger sister, while the youngest child was 3. Both were clever, adorable children who naturally drew affection from everyone around them. Xuanling's 2 children are growing up as well. In another 3 years, all the younger generation will be old enough. We can bring them before the Dharma mirror and ask for talisman seeds together. Li Xuanfeng looked down at Li Yuanshu, who was absorbed in reading a wooden slip, and sighed inwardly. It's only unfair to Tuer as the eldest. He has to wait for all his younger brothers and sisters. He had just set down his teacup when he saw Li Tongya above suddenly stiffen. Li Tongya rose at once and crossed the courtyard in several steps. What happened? Li Xuanfeng hurried after him. Outside stood Li Xuanfeng. His entire body was stained with blood. His robe was soaked in dark red and purple patches. In his hands he carried a large, battered wooden box smeared with blood. He looked utterly exhausted. Li Xuanfeng had already forced his emotions under control during the journey back. Now, seeing his elders and brothers gathered around him, only weariness remained in his eyes. The Qingchi Sect and Tangjin Gate have stirred up another killing calamity. Almost no one in Lixia Commandery survived. The Li clansmen stationed there are dead. Wan Tianchu is dead. She is dead too, and the child I never met. They died together. The short explanation left everyone stunned. Li Xiaowen, standing behind Li Xuanfeng, froze completely. His own younger brother had been assigned to guard Lixia Commandery. Everyone had once thought it was a fortunate posting. Instead, it had cost him his life. Li Tongya opened his mouth. Looking at the exhausted young man before him, he spoke quietly. First, bury them on the mountain. Li Xuanfeng nodded, his voice trembling. I couldn't find the child's remains. I brought back several sets of clothes. I can only make a cenotaph for him. Li Xuanfeng's eyes reddened. He watched Li Xuanfeng excuse himself and head farther up the mountain to bury his woman and child. Then he turned bitterly toward Li Tongya. Granduncle, what kind of world is this? The world is unpredictable. Li Tongya sighed. He could no longer remember how many times he had spoken those words to comfort others. The first time he had heard them was from Li Mutian. Since then, life had forced him to understand them again and again, each repetition carving the meaning deeper into him. Li Xuanfeng sent people down the mountain to summon the families of the dead clansmen so they could collect the bodies. Li Xiaowen hurried down as well. Li Xuanfeng himself quietly entered the mountain. There, he found Li Xuanfeng digging graves with his own hands. He buried Zhang Yunu in a black wooden coffin. Then he placed the child's clothing into another grave and carefully covered it. Only when both were finished did Li Xuanfeng look up at Li Xuanfeng. He forced a faint smile. My father was laid to rest by my hands. My wife and my son were buried by my hands too. When the day comes for me to be buried, I'll have to trouble eldest brother. What nonsense are you saying? For the first time, Li Xuanfeng truly adopted the stern posture of an elder brother. He glared fiercely at him. Before he could continue, Li Xuanfeng waved a hand. Brother, I'm not saying this because I want to die. My father's vengeance and my family's hatred are still on my shoulders. Xuanfeng must treasure his life more than ever. As they spoke, Li Tongya descended into the mountains. Li Xuanling soon arrived as well. The three listened while Li Xuanfeng recounted everything, including how he had killed the young master of Liujin Gate with arrow intent. Li Tongya lowered his brows. He wanted to reprimand the boy, yet feared pushing him too hard in his present state. In the end, he only sighed. Do not do anything so dangerous again. Li Xuanfeng nodded and said nothing. Li Xuanling leaned against a rock. Looking at his elders and brothers, he could think of nothing better to say. The world is hard. No family has an easy road. We can only keep moving forward. In the 8th month, Tangjin Gate marched south and slaughtered Lixia Commandery. Some clans shut their gates and were exterminated within their homes. Others were wiped out root and branch. Corpses covered the city, with no one left to bury them. Homes stood empty. The 4 directions reeked of decay, and the remaining branch of the Wan family also perished in the city. Li Jingxian finished writing. A few dozen characters had reduced the tragedies of countless families to a handful of lines. She dipped her brush again and continued. Li Xuanfeng's wife and child were both killed, his eyes nearly split with rage. Riding the wind eastward, he sighted Tangjin Gate from afar, and shot their young master dead on the spot. Aunt, 2 children from Li Xuanling's household came laughing into the courtyard. Li Qinghong was the elder sister. Girls grew quickly, and she now reached Li Jingqian's waist. Her long hair was pinned across the back of her head, and her lively nature showed in every movement as she rushed into the courtyard with a laugh. The younger child, Li Wanyan, was much quieter. He followed carefully behind his sister. When he saw Li Jingqian, he even stopped and bowed properly. The children were only 6 or 7 and had never gone down the mountain. They often came to Li Jingqian to chat with their aunt and find little things to occupy themselves with. The previous year, Li Yuanzhao had been discovered to possess a spiritual aperture and had gone up the mountain to cultivate. Whenever the children studied, they called him elder brother Yuanzhao. When they grew bored, they came to Li Jingqian instead. Li Jingqian set down her brush and covered the unfinished manuscript on her table with a cloth. Smiling, she lifted Li Qinghong into her arms. Only then did footsteps sound outside. A gentle voice followed. Yuanzhao greets aunt. A boy dressed in black entered through the doorway. His long hair was tied back, a sword hung at his waist, and his eyes were bright and alert. Before Li Yuanzhao went up the mountain, his mother, Mu Yalu, had carefully instructed him to visit Li Jingqian often. He had obeyed, frequently coming to borrow books from her. Come sit. Li Jingqian smiled. Seeing the 3 children together so harmoniously eased her heart. She turned to Li Yuanzhao. Where is your father? At the mention of Li Xuanfeng, Li Yuanzhao lowered his eyes. His answer carried a trace of resentment. If he isn't dealing with clan affairs at the foot of the mountain, then he's in seclusion cultivating. He only ever goes to those 2 places. Where else could he be? Li Jingqian froze. She quickly stroked his head. Your father is responsible for such a large clan. Naturally, it is difficult for him to always be attentive to you and your mother. Don't resent him. Yuanzhao wouldn't dare. Li Yuanzhao quickly nodded and fell silent. But inwardly he thought, mother says the same thing. Aunt says the same thing. I'm not blind. Why does brother Yuanxiu get to follow him around every day, while mother and I barely ever see him? His elder brother Li Yuanxiu was gentle and kind. Li Yuanzhao liked him very much. That only made the resentment in his own heart feel worse. Li Jingqian pressed her lips together. She still wanted to offer a few words of comfort when firm knocks sounded outside. Li Tongya shook out his robes and stepped into the room. Li Xuanling followed behind him in leather armor, with Li Xuanxuan in a long robe beside him. The children were startled badly enough that they all jumped to their feet and greeted the elders at once. Second great uncle. Elders, Li Tongya smiled. A few months earlier, on a sudden surge of inspiration, he had broken through to the 8th layer of qi refining. The unexpected success had left him in a good mood for 2 full months. Seeing the children cheerful today made his expression brighten further. Xuanfeng still hasn't left seclusion? Not yet. After burying his wife, Li Xuanfeng had obediently gone into seclusion on the mountain. He no longer wandered outside. If anything, he cultivated with far more intensity than before. He had already been in seclusion for more than 2 years. Li Tongya stroked his beard. The change in the boy pleased him. An elder always had to look farther ahead. If not for the child who died in the commandery, this lesson might almost have been a good thing. It has finally made that boy settle his heart and focus on cultivation. He looked at the younger children, who had all become restrained in the presence of so many elders. After calculating the time, Li Tongya turned to Li Xuanxuan. Call Yuanshu up the mountain. The time has come. If we delay much longer, we may hold the child back. The 2 brothers exchanged a glance and immediately understood what Li Tongya meant. Li Xuanxuan nodded. A clan soldier was sent down the mountain to summon Li Yuanshu. The boy was now 14 and had already begun assisting with minor affairs at the foot of the mountain. Li Tongya sat above them, slowly drinking tea. His gaze rested on the black-clad Li Yuanzhao. Most of these children are clever enough. Xuanling only has 1 son of the Yuan generation, Yuan Yun. Xuanxuan, on the other hand, has many descendants. Even among his secondary sons, there are 4 or 5. One of them could be adopted into Cheijing's branch. It would be best if the child possessed a spiritual aperture. If so, there is really no better choice than Yuanzhao. But this is an important matter. I should first see the child's talent and character. A short while later, Li Yuanshu arrived. The young man had neat, handsome features. A white cap rested on his head. He was calm, courteous, and wore a gentle smile. A green longsword hung in his hand, giving him an air far beyond his years. Greetings, honored elders! Li Yuanshu's voice was clear and strong. The younger children, including Li Yuanzhao, immediately rose when they saw him. They looked at him eagerly, almost as if they wanted to rush over and hug him. Li Tongya nodded lightly. Li Xuanxuan, meanwhile, grinned with obvious satisfaction. As the eldest of the 4th generation, Li Yuanshu was excellent in nearly every way. His bearing, appearance, conduct, and talent were all first-rate. His younger brothers and sisters adored him. He truly had the makings of someone who could shoulder the clan in the future. Everyone sat down. The younger children remained awkwardly in the center of the courtyard, gradually edging behind Li Yuanshu. Li Xuanxuan glanced at his brothers and sister, then spoke gently to them. It's rare for everyone to gather like this. Second great uncle has also left seclusion. You little ones don't need to be so nervous. Come closer. Li Tongya looked at the sword at Li Yuanshu's waist. How is your sword cultivation? Have you thoroughly understood the profound water sword art? Li Yuanshu cupped his hands. Reporting to second great-granduncle, Yuanshu began learning the sword at 7. It has been 6 years. I have memorized the profound water sword art completely and can already produce sword light. Not bad, Li Tongya nodded. Tomorrow, come to my cave dwelling on Mount Michi. I will teach you swordsmanship. Li Xuanfeng was overjoyed. Everyone around Moonwatch Lake knew how formidable Li Tongya's swordsmanship was. Being personally taught by him was naturally a tremendous opportunity. Li Yuanshu nodded repeatedly. The younger members of the Yuan and Qing generations looked on with envy. Li Tongya smiled at them. The same goes for all of you. Whoever can cultivate sword light before the age of 15 may come find me at the cave dwelling on Mount Michi. After saying this, Li Xuanfeng nodded and rose to leave. Li Jingtian also said her farewells and followed. The brothers Li Xuanling and Li Xuanxuan exchanged a look. Li Xuan spoke softly, then take the children to the rear courtyard. Yuanshu, Yuanzhao, Wanyun. As for Qinghong, take her too. Li Xuanxuan thought for a moment. Li Jingxian's face suddenly surfaced in his mind. He remembered the look in her eyes years ago, when he asked whether she wished to marry Chen Donghe. His heart tightened. He lowered his head and gritted his teeth. Take her too. If Granduncle asks, I'll explain it myself. At the foot of the mountain within the mirror world, Lu Jiangxian sat watching stone spirits run and leap about before him. These demons he had enlightened worked diligently inside the mirror. Pale blue radiance hung overhead, casting shifting shadows across the ground. Most of the buildings within the mirror realm had already been repaired. The entire place was finally becoming pleasant to look at. Lu Jiangxian's life inside the mirror consisted mostly of researching shamanic arts and occasionally checking on the Li clan outside. It was not merely peaceful. It was at times painfully boring. Life had simply become like this. Even finding an opportunity for excitement was difficult. My study of shamanic arts has made some progress. These past few years were not wasted. By now, he had developed several types of curse techniques, along with blessing arts and tracking methods. Unfortunately, such techniques were not particularly useful to a spirit trapped inside a mirror. Even so, the deeper Lu Jiangxian's understanding of shamanic arts became, the more clearly he sensed their connection to the Dharma mirrors of the Shan Yue. Many operations of the Dharma mirror that had once required complicated manipulation now came to him almost instinctively. He could even use the mirror to perform things that had once been impossible. His spiritual sense extended outward from the mirror. The stone doors rumbled open. Li Xuanxuan and Li Xuanling entered, leading several children by the hand. A rich fragrance filled the chamber, but none of the children reacted. Their 5 senses had been sealed by spiritual power. They simply held tightly to their elders and did not dare speak. Li Yuanzhao saw only darkness. He could hear nothing. Even when he opened his mouth, no sound emerged. He instinctively tightened his grip on his father Li Xuanxuan's hand. Then someone patted his shoulder. Remembering his father's instructions, he hurriedly knelt. Something soft lay beneath his knees, like a smooth cushion. Li Tongya had already been waiting inside the stone chamber. He stared silently at the Dharma mirror resting on the stone platform. When all 4 children had knelt, he lowered his eyes briefly toward Li Qinghong. He showed no objection. Then he spoke respectfully. 4th generation of the Li Jing Li clan. 4 children stand before the mirror today. We respectfully invite the wondrous method of Xuanming to govern fate and calm the spirit, to follow the Tao and cultivate. To receive it is fortune. To fail to receive it is also fate. In due time we shall report our accomplishments and betray no trust. Offerings shall be burned according to the water and cold register, and our bodies shall give thanks to Supreme Yin. Lu Jiangxian moved his spiritual sense. An invisible colorless ripple swept across the children. Above each head appeared a nearly transparent white halo. On the far left knelt the eldest, Li Yuanxiu. He possessed a spiritual aperture, and his natural talent was quite good. He could not compare with Li Xuanfeng of the previous generation, but his aptitude still surpassed Li Xuanxuan's by 6 inches. The white halo represented a person's compatibility with the profound pearl talisman seed. If someone without a spiritual aperture possessed a halo 1 foot long, swallowing a talisman seed could effectively grant them the equivalent of a spiritual aperture. If the recipient already had a spiritual aperture, the same degree of compatibility could double their cultivation speed. Li Yuanshu's halo was roughly 6 inches long. In other words, receiving a talisman seed would increase his cultivation speed by about 60%. In the middle knelt Li Yuanzhao and Li Wanyun, one dressed in black and the other in white. Li Yuanzhao possessed a spiritual aperture. His aptitude even appeared slightly better than Li Wanshu's. His white halo measured about 7 inches. It was an excellent result. Li Wanyun, however, had no spiritual aperture at all. His white halo was also a trim 7 inches. Lu Jiangxian sighed softly. Then his gaze fell on the last child. Li Xuanfeng, his eyes immediately brightened. This child possessed a spiritual aperture. Her natural talent was only slightly inferior to Li Yuanshu's, but the white halo above her head measured nearly 9 inches. It shone like a faint pillar of light. Li Yuanshu would normally be an excellent choice, but judging from what the Great Evolution Heavenly Mystery Divination showed several decades into the future, there was no sign of Li Yuanshu anywhere in the Li clan. Investment always carries risk. One must be cautious. Lu Jiangshan considered the children like an old farmer at the beginning of planting season, calculating which seeds would yield the richest harvest next year. The Dharma mirror floated up from the stone platform and emitted pale white light. Li Tongya wants the Yuan generation to receive only 1 talisman seed. He is afraid that in a few years there will be none left for later descendants. But he does not know that I still have 3 talisman seeds hidden inside the mirror. This decision is not his to make. Li Yuanzhao and Li Qinghong, I want them both. The 12 seal characters on the Dharma mirror lit up one by one. Li Tongya's and Li Xuanfeng's eyelids twitched. They had the strange feeling that boiling white moonlight was about to erupt from the mirror. Lu Jiangshan gathered his spiritual power. 2 profound pearl talisman seeds emerged. Disciples of the Li clan, restrain your passions, sever external corruption, cut away the roots of evil. I bestow the wondrous method of Xuanming, that your Tao may take root, that you may rise from mortality toward transcendence. You are granted the Supreme Yin Breathing and Meridian Nourishment Sutra and 1 tracking art. 2 white pearls leapt from the mirror. They were perfectly round and brilliantly luminous. White radiance flashed through the chamber. The children, their 5 senses sealed, noticed nothing. Li Tongya, however, froze. One after another, the profound pearl talisman seeds entered the rising young palaces between the brows of Li Yuanzhao and Li Qinghong. Because neither child had yet cultivated the guidance art, the seeds did not travel through the meridians into their Qi acupoints. Instead, they quietly remained hidden within the rising Yang Palace, waiting for the children to circulate the guidance art and draw them down into the Qi. Li Yuanzhao felt only a cool sensation between his brows, as though something had shone into him. Li Qinghong frowned slightly as well. A bright crescent-shaped mark appeared between each child's brows. It flashed several times, then vanished. Li Xuanfeng stood dumbfounded. He had never imagined that Li Yuanshu would be passed over while Li Yuanzhao and Li Qinghong were chosen instead. He turned toward Li Tongya. This! Take the children out first. Li Tongya shook his head. Li Xuanling led the 4 children away. Only then did Li Xuanfeng speak hurriedly. How are we supposed to handle this? Yuanshu is the eldest brother. He has a spiritual aperture. From beginning to end, the clan should eventually be placed in his hands. How can we possibly hide this from him? There is no need to hide it. Yuanshu is broad-minded and gentle. He will not become jealous of his younger siblings. Li Tongya and Li Xuanfeng left the stone chamber together. Yet worry remained on Li Tongya's face. What concerns me is not Yuanshu. He is generous now, but his descendants may not all be like him. There are only 1 or 2 talisman seeds available to each generation. Those who receive them will inevitably feel proud. The trouble in this world has never merely been that people receive too little. It is that they cannot accept receiving unequal shares. After enough years pass, when you and I are no longer able to manage the clan, resentment may become conflict. Li Xuanfeng fell silent as well. The 2 stood atop the mountain for a while. An icy wind struck their faces. Li Tongya murmured, among the direct descendants of our main line, anyone born with a spiritual aperture or granted a talisman seed should be told about the Dharma mirror. In the future, all of them will swear the profound Senary spirit oath together. At least, that will reduce the chance of the secret leaking. Every additional person who knows is another chance for exposure. Li Xuanfeng replied respectfully. Granduncle knows as well as I do that the profound Senary spirit oath is not perfect. Li Tongya shook his head. We can only take 1 step at a time. At the very least, we must ensure there is no hidden cause for division in the next generation. Rules must change and improve as circumstances change. There is no perfect system, Lixia Commandery. The people of Tangjin Gate had withdrawn long ago. The blood and corpses in the commandery had already been devoured clean by beasts. Only scattered traces of smoke and pale bones remained across the ground. The empty city howled beneath the wind as though weeping in silence. The bodies that had once rotted throughout the streets had been eaten away. For more than a year, no travelers had passed along the roads of Lixia. Weeds gradually crawled across the stone. The sky above the commandery was cloudless. From the south, a figure flew toward the city like a falling star. 5 or 6 pouches hung from his waist. A long sword rested across his back. His face was weathered, and a faint saber scar crossed his left cheek. Looking down at the empty city, he sighed sadly. 20 years. The Qingchi Sect has finally allowed me to return. It seems Clan Uncle also escaped the sect's scrutiny. The time has come my Xiao clan's great undertaking to flourish. He crossed the abandoned commandery. Guanyun Peak appeared ahead. Joy and grief mingled inside him. He was glad to have escaped the grasp of the Qingchi Sect and returned to his familiar home. But he had also come to deliver the belongings of a dead junior brother. He shook his head. How am I supposed to face Chaijing's family this time? Inside a courtyard, Li Yuanxiu stood holding a sword. Before him, Li Yuanzhao wore black robes and practiced his forms. The cold wind whistled around the blade. Both of Yuanzhao's hands had gone pale from gripping the hilt so tightly. His swordsmanship was heavy and deliberate. A light sheen of sweat covered his face. Zhaoer, how long have you been studying the profound water sword art? Li Yuanxiu patted Li Yuanzhao's shoulder and corrected the position of his blade. 2 years, Li Yuanzhao answered quietly. Li Yuanxiu corrected several more mistakes. Then a boy appeared at the entrance. He looked slightly younger than Li Yuanxiu. The boy cupped his hands toward both brothers. Elder brother, my father asks you to go up the mountain. Li Yuanxiu nodded to Li Yuanyun. Then he turned his head. Go to the eastern courtyard and tell them I won't be dealing with clan affairs for now. Behind them, Li Pingyi had grown tall. He was already somewhat larger than his father, Li Xiwen. Hearing the order, he nodded and left. Li Yuanxiu finished correcting Li Yuanzhao's sword posture, then followed Li Yuanyun up the mountain. Li Xuanfeng was sitting in the courtyard, watching tea leaves rise and fall inside his cup. Li Tongya had instructed him to reveal some of the Dharma Mirror's secrets to Li Yuanxiu. Yet worry and unease filled his heart. He had known for some time that his own son, Li Yuanyun, possessed no spiritual aperture. A few days earlier, he had still held a faint hope. Perhaps the Dharma Mirror might choose the boy anyway, solving the problem. After kneeling once before the mirror, Li Xuanfeng had been forced to accept reality. The bitterness remained. Watching his child run back and forth across the mountain left him with emotions he could hardly describe. What will become of this child? When Li Xuanfeng was young, he had noticed that third uncle Li Xiangping always favored Li Jingqian a little more. Later he learned that Jingqian possessed no spiritual aperture, and that extra affection had been born from pity. Now, with the same thing happening to his own son, Li Xuanfeng finally understood the feeling. It was not merely love, there was guilt, there was sorrow. Anyone who claimed otherwise was lying. A rapid knock sounded at the door. Li Yuanyun led Li Yuanxiu inside. The child had spoken with Li Xuanfeng through most of the previous night. He now knew he had no spiritual aperture. He had cried twice before finally exhausting his tears. Today he even wore a small smile, trying instead to comfort his father. Greetings, clan uncle? Li Yuanxiu cupped his hands. Little Yuanyun quietly left the room on his own. Watching him go, Li Xuanfeng lowered his eyes. He turned his head away and spoke with a trace of bitterness. I called you here today because you have already reached the profound senary stage. There are certain matters within the family that you should know. Li Xuanfeng had thought carefully about how to explain everything before summoning him. Now he organized his thoughts one final time. Our family possesses an ancestral artifact. It is a blue-gray mirror, far beyond the level of ordinary Foundation establishment artifacts. It has many wondrous uses and is profoundly mysterious. He explained the abilities of the Dharma mirror one by one, giving several examples. Li Yuanxiu listened with growing happiness for the sake of the clan. Only then did Li Xuanfeng reach the difficult part. A few days ago, when we sealed your 5 senses and brought all of you before the mirror, we were asking it to grant talisman seeds. Your younger brother Yuanzhao and your younger sister King Hong received the Dharma mirror's favor. Talisman seeds have already been secretly placed within their rising yang palaces. Li Xuanfeng did not mention that a talisman seed could be requested for a specific person. Instead, he framed the matter as something granted only through the Dharma mirror's favor. Naturally, this was meant to prevent Li Yuanxiu from feeling that he had somehow lost to his younger siblings. Li Yuanxiu smiled. That is wonderful. Then a trace of sadness appeared in his eyes. It's only a pity about Yuanyun. The words struck directly at Li Xuanfeng's own heart. He nodded heavily. Yuanyun cannot cultivate. There are many things he is unwilling to say even to his father. His road ahead will not be easy. I hope you will look after him in the future. Li Yuanxiu nodded solemnly. The two spoke beneath the lamplight for a long time. Li Yuanxiu's insight into several matters even caused Li Xuanfeng to look at him with new respect. They talked until late at night. Only then did Li Xuanfeng have him swear the profound senary spirit oath and send him out. With Yuanxiu managing the family in the future, there should be little to worry about. Li Xuanfeng felt much better. He watched Li Yuanxiu descend the mountain and nodded with satisfaction before returning to his cultivation. Xiao Yunxi first paid respects to ancestor Xiao Chuting, then met with his clansman Xiao Yongling. Only after that was he finally free to leave. He rode the wind along the ancient Li Road. crossed layer upon layer of forest, and entered Li clan territory. The simple Mount Li Jing he remembered from years ago had been transformed. Golden light now shimmered across an intricate formation. Xiao Yunsanti nodded. With his current foundation establishment cultivation, the formation was not much in his eyes. But it was enough to show how far the Li clan had progressed over the years. He steadied himself outside the formation. For a moment hesitation crossed his face. Qingwei Peak. Then he reconsidered and changed his words. Xiao Yuanzi of the Lixia Xiao clan has come to pay a visit. Please open the mountain gate. There was a long pause below. At last, a small opening appeared in the formation. Xiao Yuanzi withdrew his spell and descended through it. The junior waiting for him was unfamiliar, though the face seemed faintly familiar. The young man cupped his hands. Li Xuanfeng of the Li clan greets senior. The elder of our household is currently in seclusion. Please come sit in the courtyard. Xiao Yuanzi nodded lightly. He looked at the young man and suppressed the urge to ask whose child he was. Instead, he sat down, accepted the tea, and silently waited for Li Tongya and the others to arrive. He was still considering what words to use when Li Tongya appeared at the entrance. Li Tongya looked around. Only the two of them remained in the courtyard. He cupped his hands respectfully. Greetings, senior. Xiao Yuanzi looked at him with emotion. His gaze lingered on the silver beginning to appear at Li Tongya's temples. You've grown old too. Where is Xiangping? Li Tongya lowered his head. His eyes revealed nothing. Under an agreement between the two sects, the Shanyu were driven eastward. They forced Xiangping to his death. Xiao Yuanzi had already arrived carrying guilt. Those words struck him like a hammer to the skull. His expression became heavy. He removed the sheathed sword at his waist and offered it forward. Linger is gone too. Li Tongya had known already, yet tears still escaped his eyes. He accepted the sword with both hands and choked out. Tongya lost his elder brother at 20. After that, father, mother, brothers, one after another they left. Today I have no parents before me, and no brothers beside me. Xiao Yuanzi was now a true foundation establishment cultivator. Yet those few sentences still brought tears to his eyes. He remembered the promise he had made years ago when he came to the Li clan to refine pills to help care for the boy. He clenched his teeth. Tongya, I have wronged you. Li Tongya suddenly frowned, his voice trembled. Senior Xiao, I ask you only one thing. How did Changing die? Xiao Yuanzi's face flushed. A fierce struggle unfolded within him. Several breaths passed before he finally answered. The Qi clan killed him. They offered him to a demon in the southern border, to be refined into medicine. My master opposed it fiercely and was imprisoned beneath a tower. To this day, he has not been released. We were powerless. So it was the Qi clan. Li Tongya knew the Qi clan held enormous power within the Qingchi Sect. If anyone could do such a thing, it made bitter sense that they would. He bowed. Thank you, senior. I do not deserve your thanks. Xiao Yuanzi shook his head. The sorrowful atmosphere made him deeply uncomfortable. He hurriedly changed the subject. Today I came because junior brother asked me to bring many things back to his family. I will hand all of them to you. The most precious is this Qingchi sword. Xiao Yuanzi pointed toward the sheathed blade and explained. My master requested 7 qi of Qingming copper from Qingchi Mountain. He combined it with 32 kinds of heavenly materials, earthly treasures, and spiritual resources, then entrusted the forging to the master of Yuanwu Peak. When the sword was first completed, it was not yet a foundation establishment grade artifact. Later, my junior brother nourished it day and night. His sword intent gradually merged with the blade. When he broke through to foundation establishment, the sword gained tremendous spirituality. It contains a pure strand of moon astral sword intent and possesses profound mysteries. It became a true foundation establishment artifact. Changing specifically instructed me that it must be brought home. Xiao Yuanzi shook his head and sighed. But ever since it came into my hands, this sword has refused to leave its sheath. Even when I call it with spiritual power, it remains dim and unresponsive. It seems the sword has developed a spirit of its own and refuses to submit itself as part of my inheritance. Li Tongya examined the weapon from top to bottom. He could not see the blade itself. Only a faint white sword light swayed around the sheath, strangely beautiful. He pulled with some force. As expected, the sword would not come out. That is the first item. Xiao Yuanzi stared sorrowfully at the sword. The second, Cheijing earned some merit in the southern border. He heard that the family lacked an alchemical inheritance, so he exchanged his merit for one. It is here. He took out a jade slip. Its clear glow was beautiful, and tiny characters were carved across its surface. Li Tongya accepted it and read the title, Secret Essentials of Pill Refining. Xiao Yuanzi then took out a storage pouch and handed it over. These are miscellaneous supplies, more than 100 spirit stones, several qi refining talismans, and one precious Suiwan pill, which can increase the chance of successfully reaching foundation establishment by half of 1%. Li Tongya hurriedly accepted everything. He had never imagined that Li Chejing had planned so thoroughly for the family. He lowered his eyes and murmured, "That child,